Okay, good day and welcome to today's interview. I'm excited to be speaking with Sean Clearwater, financial expert with over 18 years of experience in the industry. Sean's diverse background, which spans with working from high net worth clients to middle America, gives him a unique perspective on financial planning. He has passion for solving complex financial puzzles and providing clarity on topics that often cause stress and confusion, such as retirement planning and debt management. Today, we're going to be discussing an important issue that affects both companies and employees. It's the impact of a poorly managed 401k program. Sean, thanks for joining us. Let's dive right in.
Pleasure. Thank you. Yeah. Let's get started. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just start really real quick. From a high-level perspective, what are the primary consequences for a company that poorly manages its 401k program?
I think it's a little bit subjective because it's all a matter of interpretation, and each case, of course, is unique. But we can talk broadly about the most common issues that we're seeing these days. More often than not, it's just a matter of it not being a priority and somebody not keeping their hands on the wheel and paying attention to this plan because it kind of drives itself. It's not something that does well without a pilot or a co-pilot, maybe is a better term. But what we see are common issues with overcharging of fees in comparison to what the market is driving. There have been a lot of improvements with technology and things of that nature, bringing overall costs down comparison to what they used to be years ago. So for the same product and service today, you can get for sometimes half as much as in regards to fees as you could have years ago. And it's real important to stay on top of that on a regular basis, at least on an annual cadence, to make sure that you're competitive with other plans of similar size.
Very good. Thank you.
We can go further.
Thank you. No, from a high level, that's great. Thank you so much. And from an employee perspective, how does a mismanaged 401k program impact employee morale and retention? Do you find that it affects overall employee engagement as well?
Yeah, great question. Some of the things I've seen in recent plan reviews are employees that are interested in participating, but they're so frustrated with the options and how confusing it is to sign up and not understanding the value of participating in their company's plan that it's not uncommon for them to just skip it and not participate at all, which is counterproductive not only for their own financial well-being and but also for the companies. They've gone to the trouble of establishing and having a plan, and then to have employees that aren't participating in it, it's just not conducive to good morale around the workplace when people are talking around the water cooler or whatnot about how good their 401k plan is. When they're not even participating, it doesn't bode well for morale in that regard.
Very good. So from an HR perspective, this is a real issue, but also from a legal as well. Can you tell me about the legal risks a company may face if their 401k program is not compliant with regulatory requirements?
Sure. There's a uh, fancy common word that's being thrown around a lot recently, and the word is fiduciary, and it carries a lot of weight behind it. And when it comes to 401k plans or retirement plans in general, the person that signs the tax form for that plan, it's referred to as a 5500 form. The a responsible party that's signing at the bottom of that form is formally a fiduciary of that plan. And when you become a fiduciary of a retirement plan, the laundry list of responsibilities and expectations are quite large. So when you're not aware of what those responsibilities are, it's hard to do a good job of making sure that you're meeting the expectations that are put on you by virtue of having signed that form. Uh, it's not uncommon for owners of companies, top executives, HR managers to be the responsible parties signing these forms. And I think they're just doing it out of respect or request of their employer. An accountant is perhaps asking them, hey, we prepared this form for you, sign here. And they don't know any better, and they have no idea the responsibility that comes along with the actual signature there. And that can be outsourced. The Department of Labor actually recommends outsourcing the signing of the 5500 form and utilizing a service that's referred to as a 316. It's a very overall inexpensive outsourcing activity that can really alleviate a lot of responsibility legally from a personal and employment perspective from the person that's signing that. And you can offload that and outsource it to another institution or organization or individual.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you about that. But first, I want to ask you about 1K plans and how can these affect employees' long-term financial security?
Common administrative mistakes. I think lack of having a third party that is able to look objectively and broadly at the way that the plan is performing and do some form of competitive analysis to ensure that it's fully tuned up. There are so many opportunities inside of 401k plans to make adjustments that sometimes it's overwhelming, and so then they don't do anything. They're checking a box, that they have a 401k plan or retirement plan, and they leave it at that. And it's just a missed opportunity because the people that tend to be hurt the most are the ones that have been there the longest, and they're the ones that I would argue the employer is most concerned about ensuring that they stay. So when you've got long-term employees participating in a plan and then that plan not being well managed, it's just a bad equation. You're not going to get the best result that you could get with just a little bit of effort. But the struggle is that you've got business owners that are busy running their business. So enabling them to leverage a service that will holistically look at their retirement plan, provide education, competitive analysis, regular reporting, and give them a resource to go to that is an expert in that field, it'll really make a big difference.
Very good, thank you. So now let's assume that they aren't making administrative mistakes, at least. Still, there's another half of that equation. So how do the high fees or poor investment options in the company's 401k program impact employee retirement outcomes?
It's a pretty direct correlation. You've got a situation where if there are excess fees, now those fees are coming straight out of your employees or your participants' pockets, which directly affects their balance in their 401k plan, which affects the time frame in which they can actually decide to retire. Very small amounts over long periods of time can have dramatic impacts. We're talking scenarios where I've done some simple math on participants that have been with employers for 20 to 30 years. They were in a position where they could have retired upwards of 5 years sooner if the plan had been managed properly and there weren't excessive fees being assessed.
Very good. And there must be a reputational impact as well. Can you talk about the reputational damage a company might face if their retirement plans are being seen as being poorly managed or underperforming?
I would argue that it's not a big enough issue. Otherwise, they might take more action. But it is bizarre how I've done reviews of really large retirement plans, and the complacency is disturbing. Unfortunately, we'll see some litigation for the larger plans that will get some publicity and more attention. But it's unfortunate that it has to get to the class action lawsuit space and time in the sequence of events and the sequential approach of recognizing that there's a problem and actually doing something about it or not doing something about it, and then bringing legal recourse in because an employee becomes aware that, hey, they could have retired 5 years sooner if their employer had properly managed the plan that they've been participating in for the last 30 years. So I think that all of this stuff is preventable if you are paying attention to it. But it's hard because it's sitting on a shelf, it's checking a box, and it's difficult for employers to find the time and move it up the priority list because no one is complaining, and they often just don't know that they even have a choice in the matter. Profit sharing plans sometimes are the worst ones because the employers contributing sometimes large sums of money as retirement contributions to these employees, yet they have no control over what the investments are, and they have definitely no control over what the fees are when they can't even choose which investments the money is going into. There's a vesting schedule attached and things of that nature, but the 401k plans that are elective, that allow people to choose their investments, at least they have some control because they can see oftentimes what the expense ratios are, and then they can be consciously making a choice between different things on a menu or a list of investment choices. Then at least they have some control just by virtue of which one they pick. But ultimately, it's the employer and hopefully an advisor that's involved that is making the subset selection of funds that these employees can choose from the thousands that are in the marketplace. So, employees are only often having a small list to choose from a very large list that's in the marketplace. So that's a little bit longer answer than you
Very
probably
good.
bargained.
Thank you. So you talked about you
Sure.
come in and you review this. What are some of the key indicators that a company's 401(k) plan might need a review or overhaul to improve its management and performance?
Um, key indicators that you think the employer would see or that I would see from the outside.
Well, that's a great question. I don't know what they might see. What would exist, or how could they know, or what would you look for?
I think it comes often from the education side of things. You'll get, HR is getting taxed with questions from employees. They don't know which fund to invest in. They don't know how to get their money out. They don't know how to change their contributions. When the HR team is spending more than 1% of their time helping employees or participants with anything related to the 401(k) plan, that's too much. That should be an indication to an employer that there's an opportunity for an improvement there, something that they can outsource and point their employees to dedicated resources that are educated, credentialed, and licensed in the area of helping people with those decisions and those questions that they have. So I think if you're an employer and you're paying attention to what your HR team is spending their time on, or if you're able to hear some feedback from your HR team that they're having to field questions, both email and phone calls from participants in any question related to their retirement plan, that's an indication that there should be another look, a review, some type of conversation around the plan and how it's performing.
Very good. So you talked about these plan advisors. What kind of role do they play to ensure that it's managed effectively? And how can the companies be ensured they're partnering with the right people, the right financial professionals?
Great question. I think what used to be important years ago was something that was simple. And oftentimes, things that are simple cost more because they're simple. However, these days you can truly get the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and eat it too, where you can have an easy to use interface, a platform that your 401(k) plan uses in conjunction with having really low fees. And so you can have the best of both worlds. But years ago, the insurance carriers, not that there's anything wrong from an operation standpoint, but there is something wrong from a cost standpoint. The insurance driven 401(k) platforms like John Hancock, Nationwide, they're good companies. They have easy to use platforms, but they're very expensive, and you can get equivalent things these days for far less cost. So um, I get off on tangents. I'm not sure where your question was. Can you ask it one more time, or did I address it?
No, you did. You answered it very well. So, related to that, I think the next step would be is I guess how could companies, what steps should they take to ensure that they're properly or proactively managing their 401(k) programs and avoid these pitfalls of mismanagement?
Yeah, so I think that it's important and that there's a lot of value in an independent advisor, somebody that isn't just an advisor with one company. That's not always obvious. You're going to have to ask some questions. You're going to have to try to get someone behind you that can be a coach or an advocate for you and for your plan, and really at the end of the day for your employees and your participants. So trying to find someone that can do a third-party review of your plan. There are so many tools out there, in particular the ones that I leverage that take advantage of technology to read the tax forms and decipher them into digestible information. So that way you can actually make decisions or have conversations around the information that you see once it's something that you can understand. Some of the key buckets that we measure things on from a metric perspective are employer participation, like how much money is the employer putting into the plan, employee participation, how much money are the employees putting into the plan, what are the administrative fees, what's the performance of the plan, how's it doing compared to other plans in the marketplace, and then how many terminated employees are still on the plan. So how many people previously worked there that still have money inside of that retirement plan. These are all different things that we can measure and put a number to give them a score to kind of grade it effectively.
So great. Yeah, thank you so much. You definitely answered that. So I guess the question now is for people that have questions or they're not exactly sure how to best move forward or want to gather your expertise, how would they best reach out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the first step is having interest in wanting to make a change potentially, or at least be informed. The best way to do that is to click the link in the description of this video. That'll give you an opportunity to schedule time directly with me and potentially read more information in the different resources that we'll make available.
Very good. Great. Thank you again so much for your time. This has been very helpful for me and hopefully for the viewers as well. Appreciate
Thanks, David.
your time again.